I also want my readers to feel as if they're walking alongside my character,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So what you were saying about Sophia was like, I wanted you to have that experience too. You're not a farmer. You don't know what that's like. And so I wanted you to feel as if you were walking through the story and having that experience with her at the same time.
Welcome to our latest episode of Book Reporter Talks To, where our guest today is Sadeqa Johnson, and we are going to be talking about her latest novel, Keeper of Lost Children, which is already a Book Reporter Bets On selection. I sat down to read this last weekend, knowing that we were going to be talking, and I flew through the book. I mean, I literally could not stop reading. And also, I was doing this thing where I was turning down pages, which I don't know if anybody can see, of what I wanted to talk to her about. And I was going through those pages last night to develop questions, and there were lots of them. And I also did watch a lot of football. So, like, really, that's how fast I read this book. I'm interviewing her in advance of publication, so we don't have our book reporter review yet. But I'm going to share some accolades that I have read about her. Adriana Trigiani on the Today Show called Sadeqa one of our preeminent historical fiction writers in America. High praise. In a starred review and book list, this book, they said, Johnson once again uncovers overlooked corners of history, blending emotional storytelling with historical depth. Through vivid historical settings, Johnson gives voice to history's voiceless and delivers a moving exploration of hope, courage, and the ties that bind us through generations. Library Journal said this timely, fascinating novel highlights the importance of resilience, courage, and love in all its forms. And Claire Leslie Hall, New York Times bestselling author of Broken Country, said it's a powerful and beautifully told story about hidden secrets and the hunger to belong. I loved it. And I chose those four quotes because I think they really give you a picture of what I'm feeling seeing this book. And with that, welcome, Sadiq. It's so nice to see you again.
Same here. Thank you so much for having me. Again, I feel like I'm three for three with
You're
you.
three for three. You're three for three. You're three for three with bets on. You're three for three. And it's really fun when you sit down and you read something and you want to tell everybody about it. I mean, I've been talking to people about this book all week. And I've said, let me tell you this. Did you know that this happened? I always do that. Did you know that this happened? No one knows. And then we go from there. So I love hearing your origin stories from the time you told me about the story of how you started Yellow Wife. So tell me how you came to like write this one because both all three books, I think you've got great origin stories on where you came to find this.
Well, for Keeper of Lost Children, well, just in general, I like to say that the stories find me, right? The characters find me, the stories find me. I'm just usually minding my own business, and then I just tap into something and it's right there. So I was working on The House of Eve. I think I was on maybe the sixth or seventh draft. And I was tucked away at a little writing retreat, writing cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains in Virginia. And I think what I did was I remember stopping writing to like do a quick research. And I popped into my search bar, orphans, unwanted children, something like that. And up popped this woman named Mabel Grammer. And Mabel Grammer was a journalist. She lived in DC. She went over to Germany. She married her husband, who was a Army chief warrant officer. And she gets to Germany and she's with him, and she's a little bit depressed. She can't have children of her own because of a childhood illness. She doesn't speak the German language. She feels isolated, and she's wandering around and she encounters these nuns who say, "Come with me." And they take her to this orphanage. And when she gets to the orphanage, she realizes that she's looking at brown babies, mixed race children, the product of Black American GIs and German women.
Mhm.
And she is so overwhelmed by the notion that these children don't have parents that she decides that something needs to be done. And so she goes off and she starts the Brown Baby Plan, where she's writing articles to the American newspapers and talking about these children and giving them a step-by-step guide on how to adopt these children. She and her husband went on to adopt 12 children of their own. And she just was a woman that when I read about her, I kept thinking, why didn't I learn about her in history? Why
Right.
didn't I learn about her in social studies? Why do we have all of these amazing American women who have done extraordinary things, but they're not celebrated. And
Hmm.
in that moment, I knew her story needed to be told.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because she starts this whole project, and they say, "Well, you can do it." The other women are around her saying, "You can do it, you can do it," and she just doesn't stop. Like somebody says no, and we'll get into like, no, you can't do this, and she's like, "No, I'm going to do this." Does the word, okay, I'm probably mess it up. Mischlingskinder mean mixed race? Is that what it means?
It's a derogatory slur for the mixed race children in Germany, and I think is Mischlingskinder.
Mischlingskinder.
I had to practice that for the audio uh, portion of my acknowledgments. I had to say that for the author's note. So I think it's Mischlingskinder.
I'll go with you. I'll go with you because I sat there and I was like, what am I going to say? Blah, blah, blah. In a moment of the book, the character, okay, let's talk. There are three characters in the book. So let's set that up because you don't use her real name. So let's make sure everybody knows we're talking characters here.
So Ethel Gathers is the character that's inspired by Mabel Grammer. I just find that a story that's inspired by gives me a little bit more creative freedom to merge fact and fiction together. But I mean, Mabel Grammer was so good that when you read Ethel Gathers, you're like, this woman is a saint, you know?
Yes.
It was really hard for me to honestly find some flaws in her to make her a little bit more, not three-dimensional, but like she didn't have any big flaws, and I knew that in order to write her story she needed some supporting characters.
Hmm.
In walks Ozzie Phillips, who, I have a great uncle who is, I think, 93 years old. And he was in the Air Force during the same period in the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s. And I was picking his brain about what it was like going over into Europe when we were here dealing with the Double V campaign, right? And so the American soldiers, the Black American soldiers, had no freedom and privileges here in America because of Jim Crow, but they're going over to these other countries to help them secure freedom, right? And
Right.
so I'm asking him questions about what that was like for him. And lo and behold, that sort of got me to Ozzie Phillips's character. He is a 19-year-old young man from South Philadelphia, which is where my family is from, and he really wants to go to college. But because he's so smart, but he really, his family can't afford to send him. And so he decides he wants to make something out of his life. So he volunteers for the US Army. He wants to work in intelligence. So he goes over to Germany during the occupation. He has a lot of, back and forth situations with the American soldiers and people on the ground, but he meets this woman named Yelka. And they have this relationship out of necessity. And from that relationship, it really upends the trajectory of both of their lives.
Hmm. Hmm. And then there is this young girl who's living in the South, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Southern Maryland.
And she's in Southern Maryland, and she is living in poverty. I mean, really live in poverty. She's being worked to death on this farm. I mean, when I hear what she did all day before she went to school, I realize no child today could be doing that. They'd have to like get off their phone or something. But she's collecting the eggs. And the way you describe what her life is like is really important because you're not just saying she went and collected eggs. You're telling us there were this many hens and how many they were and what she did. So we're feeling what's going on with her because of the detail of what you're including. It's not like she went out to the barn and she came back. And I find that that's so interesting in your work because when we see the characters, it's almost like they're portrayed like a movie. Like I see them in 3D. I don't just see them in the paper on the page because you do so much to bring them to life. If I'm, and I see what she did and how she cares for her brothers, and she hasn't even gone to school yet, and she's got to walk to school.
Mhm.
And I feel that when you're writing, you have so much to develop the character right up front so that we see them. And then they evolve as goes on, but we've got that first big picture of them that is so important. Like Ozzy with his girlfriend in Philly,
Yeah.
and he's leaving her behind, and he doesn't want to do that. And then we've got this girl that gets an opportunity to go to a highbrow school,
Mhm.
but how's she going to feel there and what's going to happen? And the girl that she's rooming with is also Black, but she's wealthy. And
Yeah.
it's like the whole story. You put so many different layers into it that as you're reading, I feel the characters really come to life. like I'm sitting here doing your interview, but it's like this is the way I'm feeling when I'm reading the book. And I think that that setup on the characters draws us in so quickly. And I have no idea how this is all going to come together. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I'm involved in each of their lives, like right up front.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I
so
think that's
glad.
important. Yeah.
I was when I was writing Sophia, and actually you talked about that opening scene on the farm. I'm a city girl. I grew up in Philadelphia, so I know nothing about what it's like to collect eggs and live on the farm. But the level of research that I had to do, like I watched YouTube videos of farmers, and I read books on it, and I looked at pictures, and it all sort of came together. I also want my readers to feel as if they're walking alongside my character.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So what you were saying about Sophia was like, I wanted you to have that experience too. You're not a farmer. You don't know what that's like. And so I wanted you to feel as if you were walking through the story and having that experience with her at the same time.
Right. And then she has to go to school and she's completely mucked up, and then she gets invited to go to this very high-end school and she doesn't even have the clothes. And this is something I think we think about a lot more now. When somebody gets into a really good college, they still need books and they still need meal money and they still need walking around money. And I remember that from the Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. He got to Yale, but none of the other was
Gosh, I
provided.
love that book.
Love that book,
Oh
right?
my
Love
God.
that book. And there's a book coming out right now about St. Benedict's, the school he went to, and what the priests do there to keep these kids who are from the inner city and keep that school going. But when you think about when she gets there, that's what I was thinking about is so she's there. She doesn't have the right clothes. She's her shoes aren't right. It's like the whole thing. And to be a woman, a girl in that environment, you really captured how she's fish out of water. But she's smart. She's super smart.
Yeah, I thought that was important. And I do try really hard to show classism in my
Yeah.
stories, right? Because I
Yeah.
think a lot of times like you said, you think about this young girl, you get this opportunity, okay, go for it, but you don't think about the layers of what that looks like. And
Right.
then, coming to a school where there are different levels of students, rich or some on scholarship, but the way they mesh together and meld together. I think it's important. So that was definitely a layer that I was very conscious about.
Yeah. I mean, she gets there and her friend is going, "Oh, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there." And she's going home back to the farm. Is that what I'm going to be doing? So so in your research, did you speak to any of the children who came over on the brown baby? Did you speak to any?
I did not have any conversations with them specifically, but there's a movie called Brown Babies that
Oh,
was a documentary by Regina Griffith. And it was a movie that I watched several times. And in the movie, she had interviewed a few of the brown babies and got their different perspectives. There was so many different ways I could go with this novel,
yeah.
just based
Yeah.
on the research. There was also a couple of Facebook pages where I was able to kind of go in and read their comments and get a sense. There was one brown baby who wrote a book about his experience, and I read his book. And so I just sort of pieced it all together. What
Right. Right.
my research is I kind of front load everything up inside of me. And then when I sit down and write, I can kind of merge some of the things that I've learned with the fiction or just the story that's playing through my head, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
it all comes together in a beautiful tapestry.
Is that documentary easily available or is it on
Yeah,
like,
it's easily available. You could probably link it to this interview. I think you have to pay maybe like $5 or $10 for
okay.
it.
Okay.
But it was really eye-opening. I think I watched it 2 or 3 times. And the movie goes, it follows Ethel Gathers and it talks about her, but it also goes into the lives of a couple of the brown babies who came over and what their experience was like.
Yeah, and I think that'd be interesting for readers if they do a book club about this to be able to see, something else besides there's that extra experience that can be layered in. I love that there's this moment where, Ethel hears, you have so much to offer. And was that something like that was talked about, that she talked about, or was she like this shy person? I was trying to get a grasp on like Ethel in the book, I feel is a real go-getter, but she's
Mhm.
kind of like hesitant because she doesn't have the one thing she really wanted, which was a child. And she's
Yeah.
got to get over that that's the biggest thing in your life, to
Yeah.
have a child.
Yeah, I think I read that Mabel Grammer had gone to, I think in one of the scenes Ethel is going to the Church of Lords for
Mhm.
this blessing. And I believe that I read about that in my research and that Mabel had heard a voice and the
Yes.
voice was
Yes.
saying you have
Yeah.
more to offer. So,
Yeah.
and I think that was kind of the turning point for Ethel Gathers in my story is that you have more to offer. And so when she meets these brown children, she can look at them in a different way and not so much think about herself, right? And
Right.
so she can be a little bit more open and giving for them.
I also love that she was always carrying rosary beads and clutching them in her pocket. And I was thinking when we were younger, like everybody was carrying their rosary beads around, and it was just this thing like, and you every once in a while you'll say she was fingering her rosary beads, and that was just telling of she's hoping this is going to work, and she's fingering one bead after the next. Like, okay, I need my help here. I need help.
You notice on the cover that the little girl is holding rosary beads in her hand?
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
Oh,
you'll probably see it a little bit better in the finished copy once
yeah,
you
yeah,
get
yeah.
it. But in her hand, she has the rosary beads
Oh,
kind
I
of,
see it.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that is so great. I also like that we'll get into the cover later, but I like it's like a window into where she's going to go next. And I'm not going to be able to put that up there. I'll put it here. Yeah. Um, okay, so the fact that she held 500 mixed race children is extraordinary. Did you think there would be that many? I mean, first of all, that's a lot of children to have been fathered in the country.
well, it was thousands, though, that were fathered in the country. And so what I found is that not every single German woman gave their child away.
Okay.
Them, kept the children and just decided that a mother's love was more important than the other thing. So it wasn't like every single woman gave their children away. It really started, the brown babies really started during World War One because there were African troops that had come to Germany. And so that was kind of the first wave. I'm talking more about the second wave, which was also a big group from American soldiers. So it had been going on. I think it started maybe like in the 20s, maybe
Yeah.
1920s, but it was much more prevalent in the between the 40s and the 60s that a lot of these children were born. So there were thousands of them. And when I went over to Germany, I went to Germany
I
for
was
some
going
of
to ask
my
you. Yeah.
research.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I went to a museum, and one of the museums were talking about, what it was like for the brown babies who actually grew up in Germany and
Right.
what it was like for them to stay. And so it was like so many different ways I could have went with this novel, so much information.
Right. But it's nice because you're opening the door to the story of these people with your book. And
Mhm.
then from there, you're now having this window into what goes on that you may want to explore more. Because I was thinking 500 children, 1,000 children, that's a lot of children. Considering how hard it is for some people to get pregnant these days, that was a lot of people having timed pregnancies, seriously. And you can also see there was like no birth control back then. There was none of what we're doing now. It's really interesting because I was just thinking there were so many people left behind and so many children. And when you really express, get that child out of my house, I never want them there again. And that was such a big part of what was going on, of the reason these children needed new homes.
Absolutely. For the German women, what I found was that the American soldiers, when they applied for to be able to marry their German brides, the army said no. They said
Yes,
no because of Jim Crow laws. And so oftentimes those men were sent on post somewhere else or sent back to America. And so the women were left to figure it out. And
right,
now the German government doesn't want to support the women because these children are first illegitimate
right.
during a time where marriage mattered, and then they were mixed raced. And so they were often in a situation where they had to choose. Sometimes it was, do I eat? Do I feed my child? Or do I give my child up for adoption and then try to start a new life without the baby?
Right, right. And I was going to ask that because they were not allowed to. I found that that was so interesting. It's like the military had that kind of control over what was going on. And this is at the same time that Truman enacted a mandate that, quote, there shall be equality of treatment and opportunity for all persons in the armed services without regard to race, color, religion, or national origin. So that natural origin. So that's starting, but they are still not seeing that with somebody fathering a child. So it's
Came
everything is very
very slow.
slow to state what
Very
happens.
slow. Progress was very slow.
Yeah. And it's like, stating that that happens, stating what happened with Truman was one thing, but to see it enact at the same time that these soldiers are there. and they're still not getting the treatment that they deserve. They're still, because everybody's like, ah, that's just a law. Ah, that's no big deal. It's, you're really sitting there thinking about this. With, I'm probably going to mispronounce her name, Jelka. How do you say it?
Yelka.
Jelka. Ozzy goes to this rooming house where one can pay by the hour. I thought this was very interesting. Or you could pay more and stay overnight. I found that crazy. He wants to explain the race issues where hatred has been bred, but the root of it was fear. I think
Mhm.
that was just this big moment of he's trying to explain like what's going on. And he's really seeing people are fearful of what's going to happen. So let's talk about that a little bit because that was something I wasn't really thinking about, you know?
Well, I mean, I think fear is at the root of racism, right? Fear is at the root of discrimination. I'm discriminating against you because I think this is what I'm supposed to have and this is what you're supposed to have. And if you have what I have, then what's going to be left for me?
Mm-hmm.
Where's my place in society if we're now equals? And so I think that was sort of the sentiment behind what Ozzy was trying to explain to Yelka.
Yeah, he's trying to explain this is what's going on. And, it's very, very interesting. I like that Sophia was so happy to have the opportunity to learn. Like she was like this little sponge that was just so interested. And when you think about she's at a school and she's selected out of that group to go and do something like that, what a big moment for this child who is still a child in like so many ways. And I love the fact that she was going to overcome everything to get there, including she had no way to get there. And the way you portray her life felt very realistic for someone in her situation of they don't really want you to be smarter. They just want you to be a field hand on the farm. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have an affinity actually for girls like Sophia. And if you think about the House of Eve, Ruby, right?
Yes,
And so
Ruby. Yeah.
that, yeah, so those type of girls who, the odds are stacked against them.
Mhm.
Really, they really don't like their circumstances and they are willing to do anything and everything to overcome it because they know on the other side of it is financial gain, is educational gain, it's a better life. And they refuse to stay where they are, regardless of the circumstances and regardless of the people who are trying to keep them there.
Right. And I love Miss Peaches, love that name, who works in the lunchroom and she befriends Sophia. And I love the fact that she makes her a dress and she does everything she can to help her. And I feel like kids need people that are there for them outside of their families. No
Oh,
matter who you are, I don't know how wealthy you are, how poor you are, whatever. You need somebody outside your family to care for you because your family's supposed to. But I thought she was a terrific character because she didn't have to. She just spotted her and said, I'm going to do something.
yeah. I will say that that is very common in the Black community that if we are out in a situation or in an environment where there's just a few of us, we're looking for each other. Especially the older woman is going to look for the younger woman to make sure that she's okay. And I really wanted to showcase that with
Yeah.
Miss Peaches.
Yeah, she's telling her this is the kind of food you're going to want. This is what you're going to want to do over here. And it's really hard to fit in. I mean, it's really hard. And there are, of course, boys. There are boys involved, and they're boys at that point. They're not men. And how she comes to know, like, even know that there's a possibility, well, that there is something called the brown babies. She didn't even know that. And she meets somebody who's a young man there who's explaining to her what's going on. And I found that was such a great intro for her because how else is she going to find it out? It's not a textbook. It's
Right.
not, but by somebody you have a crush on is like amazingly good.
Yes.
Good way to find it.
Well, we always got to have a little crush, a little love, a
Oh,
little,
yeah.
because I'm a lover of love. So that's always going to be sprinkled into my stories in some way.
And we have to have a conflict too. There also has to be a conflict. She can't just get the guy. It's got to be the guy her girlfriend has already. And we got to spill that kind of dirt too. You know what I mean? And how they each go on and, they become friends with each other. I just love that because this is her best friend. And she realizes I'm in deep trouble right now. Like for me liking her boyfriend, this is not a smart move on my part. This is not like really, really good. Let's get back to Ethel for a second in her work. I loved how dogged she was about getting the airlines to fly the children for free, about how she was trying to figure out like all these kinds of details. And I think was Scandinavia was the first airline that flew the children.
Yes.
So was there anything that really surprised you most about her? I mean, everything she did was surprising me, but this way that she walks into the country with 12 children and she's got all their files and all their paperwork, you can see it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know that I was necessarily surprised by her, but I was definitely in awe of her. I was
Hmm.
in awe of how hard she worked, that she took this on with such gust and wouldn't take no for an answer. And, the Scandinavian Airlines, all of that was Mabel Grammer. So this is
Right,
me
right, right.
merging the fact and the fiction together. So when I was studying her, I was just really in awe of how she took this on. She didn't wake up and decide, she didn't wake up wanting this, but it was put into her lap and she was like, I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to make this work.
I'm going to make this work. I'm going to make this happen. In the book, there's an article about 10,000 brown orphans in Ebony in 1948, and one in Jet magazine in November 1951 when the babies came to America. Did you find those early in your research or when you were looking for something else?
I found those early in my research, and I found those articles very helpful. I was able to go
Mhm.
to the Library of Virginia and get these archival newspapers and magazines, and they were very helpful. Mabel Grammer also was a journalist, so she wrote articles in her own voice. And
Hmm.
I read those articles, that's how I knew what her address was. Back in that time, people listed their addresses in the newspaper, and so I was able to recreate it based on her own work. So the newspapers and magazines were very, very helpful.
I also loved is that her husband is such a huge supporter of hers. I have a supportive husband. I know you've got a supportive husband, and it does make such a difference. I feel like he was championing her. It wasn't saying, I mean, if I came home with 12 children, I don't know what my husband would say. They might be drawing a line there. There are other things he has definitely said yes to, like new cabinets. Like, I need new cabinets over there. And I want the room painted. If I take out the paintbrush, he panics. I did a gallon of paint one time in the closet, never again. But did you see that in her research too, that she had a husband that was supportive? Did that ever come through in your research?
It did, and he was often by her side in the photographs that I found. When I did listen to an interview of one of their children and the way their son described their relationship and the way Mabel was and the way Oscar Grammer was with the family, I was able to get a sense of who he was. But I think it spoke volumes that when she received the award by the Pope, the humanitarian award, that it
Right.
was Ethel and it was to Mabel and Oscar Grammer. It wasn't just to Mabel Grammer. And so I knew that he was supportive and he played a role and had, a lot to do with it as well.
And I was noticing that when they won that Papal Humanitarian Award, it seemed that once again it was a time when men were recognized first.
Hmm.
And you have that in there. Her husband is spoken to first as if this was his idea, and he corrects them, placing the honor clearly with her. And it's such a typical thing of the times that, of course, the man came up with this idea. And I love that you had that there where, the Pope is speaking to him and he goes, no, this was her. I'm with her.
Yeah.
Like I'm with her, not like she's with me. You've got the words mixed up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's those little details to me that are really, really important in my writing.
Yeah, and they really definitely come through. So the book is in four parts, and I was trying to figure out because I was trying to figure out like why the four parts. Did somebody just say, "Oh, we'll do four parts"? Did you decide to do four parts?
I always like to do all of actually my last two novels are four parts, but my first four were three-part stories. And for me, it's easier to organize my thoughts and the story if I think about the book in three parts.
Okay.
I didn't start writing in four parts until The House of Eve because with the two different voices between Ruby and Eleanor in The House of Eve, it felt like more material and it was harder for me to figure out where the actual part three would have been. It was just easier for me to see it in four parts.
Right.
So when I went to write Keeper of Lost Children, I tried to go back again to the three-part structure. And this book actually was almost telling me that it was a five-part structure. And I was like, this can't be it. Like, this can't be a five-part structure. Um, the fourth part really happens in transition of moving from one country to the next. And that was sort of where my fourth part was, just to give, I write in parts also to give the reader a breather. So
Mhm.
it's like you've gotten all this information and then you're like, da 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 da, da, and you're like, okay, let me breathe right now. And then you come back to the next part.
And there's always a quote on that page. So there's something to move you into that next direction. It's like we're doing courses of a meal, and here's your palate cleanser to get
Yeah,
you to the next part. That's what I'm like, thinking about.
that's a good way
Um,
of thinking about it. I'm gonna steal that and
you
use
can
that.
steal that. You can steal that. You can steal that. How do you work with your editor? Like, when do they see your work? I know I saw you do an interview with your editor, and it was amazing. And I love to hear the two of you talking, going back and forth, because you're talking in shorthand because you know each other so well and writing. So, does she hear the idea? Does she, at what point, like, what does she do?
So I first start with my agent. Wendy is
Yeah.
my agent, but also Sharice Fisher.
Yeah.
And Sharice and I have like that editorial relationship where, like, right now I have a story in my head. So, like, when I talk to her on the phone, I might just give her a little bit, and then we'll have a full-fledged 1 hour download where I just tell her everything that I'm thinking about this story. And she sort of helps me kind of see the bigger picture or what I'm missing, that sort of thing. So I have a lot of those like editorial conversations with her up front.
Hmm.
And she's an agent with an editorial background. So she'll do that first round or that second round of edits for me prior to it getting to my publisher. With my editor, in order for her to want to buy the book, she needs to know what it's about.
Right.
And so I normally prepare a synopsis, maybe a couple of chapters. I think for this book, I sent her the first 7 chapters and a longer synopsis about what the book was going to be about. And then she sort of green lights it and sends me on my way. And I do a couple of drafts of it. And then when I send it to her, she normally sends anywhere between a 5 to 10 page editorial note with all the things that she saw. Dawn and I joke a lot about this book because she was my editor on Yellow Wife.
Right.
She said Yellow Wife had come to her like 90% ready. And her notes to me back on Keeper of Lost Children were so in depth and so pulling me apart that I had to like go to bed. Like I
Right.
literally was so depressed for all of her notes and corrections that my children were home at that time. And I was just like, I just got to go to bed. And they're like, Mommy, maybe she's wrong. I'm like, she's the editor. She's not wrong, but let me digest it. I have to go to bed. And so that's sort of the fun thing between us is that it did take me a minute. And I didn't say yes to every single thing she
Right.
said, but we
Right.
have to have a dialogue and a back and forth to make sure that we're both on the same page to make sure that this is going to be the best book it could be.
Yeah, one of my other friends says that getting the notes back is like you're getting the test back from the doctor that you're going to live or die. And you're just sitting there going, oh my God, all these pages, all these words. And I'm most often thinking, like, can't you just mark it up as you go along, going, need more here, need more there? No, it's the letter. It's the letter. I'm like, oh my gosh, you have to mark mine up. I wouldn't be able to follow. I wouldn't be able to follow. So how long did you work on this book? Was this a couple of years?
This was a it's always hard for me to say because the story came to me at the end of House of Eve, but I had to put it to the side,
Mhm.
for a while because I had to finish writing House of Eve and then I had to go out and tour for House of Eve. So I would say probably once I got into it, it was probably about a year and a half to 2 years, about 2 years it took me because I normally have a book every other year, and this book is the first time that I've gone to an extra year.
An extra year. Yeah.
Yeah.
But more and more people are doing that. More and more people are not a book a year. A book a year is brutal, as far as
Yeah.
I'm
I
concerned. I
I
think
would
it's
not
brutal.
be able to handle that schedule. A book every other year I thought was pushing it for me, but a book
Mhm.
a year, for historical fiction, there's so much details and so much researching. Like sometimes it might take me 3 months to get my research right before I
Right.
even start writing a single word. So a book a
Right.
year would be really, it would not happen. I'm just
No,
gonna
no,
say.
no. And I think that also it also gives the other book time to find an audience. I think that it's taking longer for books to find their way and their audience. There was that blast at the beginning, but then for the books to really bloom and keep going, you need time. You need
Yeah.
time for people to go out and talk about books. And I feel like I've said this over and over, that the over 40 market, like we're not really talking to, we're not talking to young people. Like, let's go with where they have the money and the time. Money and time. Time is like a really huge thing. And I just really love that when you sit there and you want to go out and talk about the book, but a book club needs time to read the book. They
Yeah.
need time to get together, get it on their calendar, these kinds of things. But when they do, it's this chance to have a discussion that then people are going to go off from there. So as much time as it takes to write it, it takes time for the book to really percolate in a huge way. Sure, it can hit the list. Sure, we can do this, that, the other thing. Not the be all end all.
But there's also the part that happens pre-pub, right? And so since September, I haven't been able to write a new book because I've been so caught up in my marketing, my publicity, my social media, my newsletters, my positioning, my book tour, meeting with book clubs, all the things that need to create that momentum so that when we get to February 10th, we already have this big steamroll behind us.
Right,
So
right.
there's that part of it too that I don't think a lot of people see, that behind the scenes. Like right before I got on the call with you, I was writing a newsletter, and I used to hire my newsletter out, and I thought, I'm spending so much money. Like I'm writing the material,
Yes,
but I'm just asking her to format it. I need to figure out how to format it myself. Like,
right,
so that took 2 hours trying to
right.
figure out how to format it, you know?
Well,
So
it's
it's
interesting because we do author newsletters. That's one of the things that we do. And we can sit there and they come back and they go, "Oh, it looks so beautiful." And I was like, okay, do you want to do this or do you want to write? Like let's get here every once in a while. Like, do you want to do this or do you want to do that? And then also we do like this analysis of like how many people opened it, all this kind of stuff. So you're sitting there looking and you have a story of what you're sitting and telling. So I hear where you're coming from, but it's like so interesting. Sometimes you sit there and go, you know what? I don't really want to be doing this
yeah.
today. I don't want to try and fit this picture in this slot or
Yeah.
figure out how to put the two pictures next to each other. And there's
Yes.
times I'm doing it and I'm just there like, oh my God, like it's really, and the template is there and I
Yeah.
want it to look different. Yeah, I know the feeling,
It's
yeah.
a lot of behind the scenes. It's not just writing the book.
It
It's
is
almost like
not.
to
Yeah.
turn the book in, that's when I don't want to say the real work because the writing of the book is the real work, but it doesn't matter if you've written a good book if nobody knows about it. You can write the absolute best book, but if you don't reach your readers, it doesn't matter. And
Mm-mm.
so I spend a lot of time trying to reach my readers.
Well, the other thing that's interesting too is there are fewer people going to social media daily these days. I
Mm.
can look at somebody who's got a really big, like this is the number of followers I've got. And then you look and they put up a really big post and you can see the numbers and you're like, you're not reaching 200,000 people.
Yeah,
You're reaching whatever you're seeing on that picture that was likes or the hearts or whatever somebody's doing. And I think that we're all caught up in the big number, but it's
yeah,
actually what is going on, what people are actually doing, the feedback you're getting that you can build on. Somebody will come back and say, I want to do this with my book club. And you following up with that person. It's all that little, it's like that little minutia stuff that you do all day long.
absolutely.
And
That
I
is,
know I do with their editorial sites. Like somebody wrote me today and she's like, I'd like to sign up to your newsletter. I don't know which one she wants. So I sent her to the newsletter page. And at the same time, I said, and here's our events page. So when you're answering, you're almost saying, oh, and I'm going to be in this area here. Take a look and see if I can meet you on the road. You constantly have to be thinking about the whole game.
yeah,
And the book is part of the game, but the book, it's like you're on a table and you're creating a board game,
yeah.
and that's at the middle, but then to get around and not hit like the exit that sends you back to like prison or something like that, you've got to figure out what to do all along the way.
Yeah, that is so
It's
true.
almost like you want to construct it like it's a little monopoly board along the way. And how are you going to get that many houses? It's like, was the title always Keeper of Lost Children?
No, the title was Beautiful Children. That was my
Mhm.
working title,
Yeah, it's a
Children.
good title.
When it got to my UK publisher, she thought Beautiful Children was a little soft and that it needed to have a little more umph. But
Hmm.
what I've learned, because House of Eve was not the original title, Yellow Wife was.
Right.
When House of Eve was not the original title, it sort of gave me some lessons that I needed to figure out. So, what I did when I was writing Keeper of Lost Children was every time a word or a phrase or a title popped in my head, I just kept it in a Google file so
Hmm.
that when the conversation came up with my editorial team, I was able to just share the file and say, okay, here we go. What are we thinking?
This is everything that I'm shooting out at you that I was thinking along the way. It's really a perfect title because it's who she is and then who the people are that are connected to this. And I think it's really, really interesting. Was this cover the first one you saw, or did you
Oh,
play with it?
absolutely not. I mean, we went back and forth and back and forth. And God bless the art department because at some point I thought they are sick of me. They are sick of me. Because it was like, we're almost there, but could we? We're almost there, but could we? And so they start off with, I think we did 3 rounds of different cover looks. And then after the third round, probably this one came up and we started to
Play
make
with
it what it is, kind of drill
Right.
down what the cover was supposed to be. But I mean, it varied because the other thing the publisher wants to do is make sure that your cover sort of it's not the same as your last cover, but people see it as a Sadeqa Johnson book. So
Right.
try to do
Right.
that but also giving the story justice. And there's a lot that goes into art. That's not a job that I would want.
Right. But I always like that you have the cover behind you. Like I don't need to just be showing this because people have seen that the entire time. And a lot of people don't do that. And there are times where I go to like a library event, a library, like we're going to do, and there were 5 authors on the screen. And I'm watching and I can't remember who's which book. And I'm that's way too much work. Just
Yeah.
having the cover behind you eliminates a whole bunch of work as far as I'm concerned. Because now I'm identifying you with that book. I'm identifying you, oh, with that story. Oh, look at that girl. Look at her from the back. I missed the rosary beads, but you know what? Okay. I try. I
Subtle,
try.
Carol. They're very subtle. I think subtle on purpose, but a
All on
nice
purpose.
touch.
Now I'm seeing them. Now I'm
Mhm.
going to see if I can find mine. You know what I mean? Like it was just so interesting because every time something happened, she was fingering the beads. And it was this talisman that was just perfect in the book to show that she had a need as well. Like she was comfortable. Like she was being very assertive in the airport, but she's fingering the beads at the same time. And then a mistake gets made and she gets really crazed about that because she realizes later that you can sit there and say, I'm going to bring 500 children into this country, but it's not all going to go perfectly. And to have to sort of hear where something went awry it becomes a tough thing.
Yes. For all of us. For you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I I always have to give myself grace. If I make one little mistake, I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my
I
gosh.
know, I know, I know.
Hey, we're type A people.
There are times where I gotta say to my husband, this is what we're going to do this weekend. And I have this list. And he turns around and he goes, okay, let's get going. And he knows not coming close. Like the day before we came back to work, I said to him, I'm going to shelve all the 2026 books in my, like in this room where I keep them. And I'm going to take all the other ones away. And I'll be done by 2 o'clock. And I'm going to get this done and that done. And he's sitting there looking at me. I came down from doing the books. I put 4 shelves of books up. I was so exhausted because I'm putting them up by date and figuring out what I want to read. And I just sat there and he says, you always come up with more things than we're ever going to accomplish in a weekend. And I was like, okay, I'll take it. It's all right. It's true. But it's you have to have goals.
Yeah.
And
So,
you and I have goals, right? If we don't hit them one day, we're going to hit them somewhere along the way.
tomorrow, for sure.
Tomorrow, yeah, tomorrow we'll get up and do it. So Ariel Blake, Karen Chilton, and Adam Lazarre-White voiced the audiobook. So you selected them, I'm sure. So who's the voice of who?
So Ariel Blake she was Ruby on the House of Eve.
Okay.
When I listened to the audio, when I was writing Sophia, I kept thinking about Ariel Blake. And I thought she has to say yes, she has to be free, she has to do Sophia's voice. And so I was very happy about that. I am
Right.
a huge fan of S.A. Cosby books. I only listen to them because I love Adam's voice so much. And
Uh-huh.
as I was listening to probably either the most recent or the book before that, I thought, he has to play Ozzy. Like I will do anything for him to be Ozzy. And so I was telling the audio department well in advance, well before they were asking me who my selections were. And actually for Ethel, I had Robin Miles because
Okay.
Robin Miles, she was the narrator for Yellow Wife.
Right.
So when they came back to me, they said we can get Adam, we can get Ariel, but Robin Miles is unavailable. And I was like, uh,
I had my soundtrack done.
yes, it was so perfect in my head. But then they sent me, I think, two or three narrators. And when I heard Karen's voice, I thought, oh, she's great. Like this is perfect. And I'm actually in the middle of listening to the audiobook now, and I love all three of them. I think they've done an amazing job. It's just beautiful. It's
I'm
a
going to listen because I did download it, but I didn't like I downloaded an early copy, but I read so quickly. I
yeah,
didn't need like there's sometimes there was a book I was working on. I was like, I need to go to the gym more because I need that 15 minutes over and back to
yeah.
be listening to this book. Like I have to get this done. It's very funny. It's very funny. So you realize the importance of audio. Do you listen a lot on your own?
I do. When I'm, and like you said, working out, I actually, when I'm working out or if I'm going for a walk, I listen to audiobooks. I never really listen to podcasts. I know people are so loving podcasts, but that's precious time for me. And so
Yes.
my listening time is so precious that I listen to audiobooks
Yeah,
during my
that's like me. I just sit there and I say, okay, I'm going to be out for 15 minutes. Or last week, I just put earbuds in and was walking around the house. And I was
yeah,
like, I've got 6 hours
laundry.
left.
Doing
Yeah,
laundry to an audiobook makes it go so much quicker.
so much quicker. So much quicker. Folding is no big. Like taking the Christmas tree down was much easier when
Yeah.
sorting the ornaments was very easy. So beyond touring for the book, do you know what's next for you? Do you have an idea? I mean, as we said, you have a very extensive tour. I'm looking forward to seeing you in New Jersey. Um, Folks, look on our website. There's a great tour that's going out there, which is terrific because I think so many readers know you right now, and to get to see you again will be terrific. So you do the tour. Do you have another idea you're working on?
So I do the tour. I'm actually going over to France to teach at a writing retreat for a week, which that's going to be wonderful in April. I have two graduates this year. I have a son graduating from college and a daughter graduating from high school. So we have that going on family wise. But I do have another idea in my head. I tinkered a little bit yesterday. It's hard for me to get a rhythm of my tinkering. I probably am tinkering on it once a week where I really need to be doing it at least 4 or 5 days a week in order for it to kind of catch steam. So I do have an idea. We'll just see where it goes. It is lighting me up on the inside. The characters are sitting in my belly. I'm very interested. Yesterday, I was doing some research and I learned about this thing that happened in the Bronx. A part of the story is probably going to take place in New York. And this thing that happened in the Bronx, I'm like, ooh, this is one of those historical nuggets that I love to sink
Yeah.
my teeth into.
Yeah.
Right, let me file that away, bookmark it so I can come back to it. So that's really kind of where I am on it. I'm still trying to figure out what the characters' names are. For me, I can't really get started until I know their names. And
Hmm.
every day I sit down, I think I know it, and then another name will pop in my head. So we'll see where it goes.
But I'm looking at the schedule. There's a lot of time on airplanes. And
Yeah.
airplane time is thinking time for me. I
It's
mean,
reading time for me.
a couple weeks ago, I said to my husband, you know what I really need? I need a flight to LA and then come back. Like, I don't even need to do anything. I just need the time and to not turn on the Wi-Fi and just write things down and think. And we don't have that time anymore. I feel like every single minute is accounted for. Like, if you're not doing this, you're doing that or the other thing. So I hear you. It's like, oh, and then book groups are going to want to talk to you. And can they reach out to you via your website to schedule time with you?
I absolutely love talking to book clubs. I had a book club meeting last night. I have one tomorrow night. I meet with book clubs as often as my schedule will allow because I want to hear from people who read the book. I want to know what they think. I want to have conversations about with them about the characters. Writing is such a individual act. I'm
Yes.
by myself all the time. So when
Yes.
I get to go out on book tour and I get to talk to book clubs, that is always so exciting for me. So yes, book clubs can go to my website, sadiqa.net, and there's a form that you can fill out, or you could also reach out to my publicist and she'll connect us.
Yeah, and but I think that it's that can't chance to have a conversation. Sometimes you're sitting back and go, "That was in my book, really? Wow, I didn't see that.
That
I didn't
happens
see
to
that
me.
coming.
Oh yeah, that happens to me.
I didn't see that." But you also got somebody graduating and like fleeing the nest in one way, or maybe staying in the nest and doing something different. And then you've got that shopping for the room because if you have a girl, it's the room when they go to college of like decorating 101,
She is
right?
a girl. She is a girl. My youngest is a girl, the one who's graduating. So it's gonna be, pray for me. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it was so funny because I have two boys, right? So the first one I said, like, okay, like you have to put sheets on the bed and they got to be those long ones. Like, what do you want? So I had the company store catalog and I handed it to him and he goes, and he's got a really good, like, kind of fashion sense. So he's going, this orange with this brown looks really good. And then we could layer this. So he's got like all these ideas. This mishmash of stuff is coming. So that's all I really need to worry about. Like, we're not thinking about anything beyond that. So the second one comes along and I said, okay, what do you want to do for bedding? He goes, what did he use? It's like, fine. And they're 5 years apart. And he goes, I'll just take that stuff. Like, I don't want to overthink. So I sent him upstairs and I said to him, you need to buy toiletries. You need to go get this stuff. Okay. So he says, it's done. And he comes back downstairs and goes, I'm done. And he never left the house. So I said, how did you do this? He goes, I just went on Amazon and I got everything. He came in, he had enough toothbrushes for 4 years of college. Like, and it was just like, okay, she wants me to do this. She gave me her credit card. I'm just going to go get it done like right now.
Right, right.
And I was laughing and like, mouthwash is coming in, like every single thing. So he obviously just sat there, thought what he would need. But I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't go through the curls that you like, the frame for the picture on the wall, nothing.
Yeah, I have two girls, so I got double trouble.
Yes, exactly. Double trouble, double trouble. It is so much fun to talk to you. Every time you've got to write another book so I can do this. I will see you in New Jersey when you come in. But I just want to tell you, I think this is your best book. I'm going to say that. And I love the other two, but I really do because I think you're talking about something that we really didn't give a lot of thought to. We
Yeah.
really didn't give a thought to. We didn't give a thought to, we didn't think about what it must have been like for these children to come here too.
Yeah.
And to hear where you're uprooted from a country, and the moment where they're being taken away in the orphanage and they're yelling, Mama, Mama, was like a real heart tug. It's a real heart tug. And to see how they're going to find something else like that in their lives is like really huge.
Yeah.
So, congratulations.
You.
Okay, and we'll do this again. So go
Yes,
write books.
well,
Write books. I
couple
can
of
do this.
years. I got to write another one. So a couple of years, I'll see you, Carol.
I'll be hanging out. I'll be hanging out, I promise. And to everybody else, I look forward to seeing you next time on Book Reporter Talks to. Thanks for joining us.